last one saw 70 plus guests. Today we have a couple. I suspect others might join. It's just the luck of the draw. I think I'm Graham Mulhern. I'm the principal at Be Secure Online. We are a specialist IT cyber, mainly cyber practice. We help people identify strategies, find gaps in their security, and work to resolve those. Good morning, John, there. And that's what we're doing here this morning. In terms of finding the best, I am a big fan of, and I've said it on video, and I've said it on channel, I've said it on radio. I think Keeper Security is genuinely a fantastic product. It is both easy to use, implements quickly, and I won't steal Neil's thunder, but one of the things he is going to talk about is its ease of use. The fact that it almost pays for its everyday use, pays for itself every day by its productivity, ease of use, and just simple, good design. And it will greatly increase cybersecurity. And one of the things that everybody wants to do is increase their cybersecurity, reduce your insurance costs, make all your productivity tools like Salesforce, SAP, M365 more accessible, but completely secure. So that's, and I don't want to overtalk because we've invited Neil to talk about that, but I think it's an absolutely excellent product. It's probably in the top 2 out of the 20 or so products that we recommend constantly to clients. And once you see it, I think you'll probably see why. So without any further chit-chat from me, I'm going to ask Neil to take over with his slides there and talk briefly to the benefits of password management and some of the global risks we're facing in 2024. So over to Neil Sinclair. Thank you, Neil.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Graham. Hello, everybody. So this is a real top-level look at the reasoning behind the use of password managers. We all know that the first time we made up a password, it was a combination of our street and our house number, or our pet's name and its birthday. And in my fairly recent visits to businesses and educational establishments, approximately 3% of the people in the room are still using that password that they were originally given when they joined up to Moshi Monsters or CBBS or whatever the children's thing was that they needed a password for. And the worrying fact was that in a lot of cases, so was the parent who gave them that password. So we know that constructing passwords is frustrating, and it's also a bit of an IQ test. Most of us suffer the former and fail the latter. So the slides that I've got here to show you are just really illustrating the points. This list of the top 10 most popular passwords is from one of the many extensive lists that you could find on the internet. Indeed, the National Cybersecurity Centre here in the UK actually publish the top 1,000 passwords every year, or at least they did up until 1922. And I think they decided it was too risky because people weren't actually changing their passwords. Other government agencies still do it, as far as I'm aware. The greater problem is, of course, that most of us still write our password on a post-it note, attach it to the computer screen, or put it in a pocketbook we keep in our handbag or shoulder bag or whatever it is. It's a lot like buying a Banham lock and leaving the door open. So if you have a look at the slides here, it just shows you some of the most well-used passwords. Obviously, huge American bent because there's a huge American user base, much bigger than ours, but it's interesting to see that with all those, 5th on the list is still Liverpool Football Club, and the combinations of how you might form Liverpool Football Club with 631,000 users, which is a pretty high number, particularly if you consider the number of people who walk around with a Liverpool shirt or a Liverpool tattoo or something that signifies that they are a Liverpool fan. It'd be fairly easy for a brute force attack on them to suss that out. Other popular passwords there. Dates of birth included in passwords, interesting peaks from 1987 and 2010. And I would say the two of those probably reflect, first of the 1987 one, massive users of the internet in the early 2000s. and then the subsequent uptake on social media around 2010 would be probably reflecting why those dates are so prevalent. I would hate to think that 2010 is used because of the under 13s who are on WhatsApp and Snapchat and TikTok, but it might well be. The curse words, a massive win there for one of them, way ahead of the others. But it's very interesting that so many millions of people think that is a very good word that nobody will crack on the internet, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. And then just people using their names is quite an interesting one as well on that. So consequently, the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK recommends the use of password managers across all its platforms, both for business and in personal use. Apart from the direct benefits of it, its adoption will enhance the general cyber awareness of users, which I think is really important, particularly employees who can see much of what they're told in security briefings being brought to life simply by the use of a password manager. Using the password manager can help enhance the security, obviously, of the passwords, and it also will protect the company's and personal sensitive information. It allows them to generate and store unique and complex passwords for different accounts, reducing the risk of the password reuse and making it easier to manage your passwords securely. It offers several global benefits: convenience. Password managers can generate strong, complex passwords, as I've already mentioned, and it stores them securely. And it eliminates the need to remember multiple passwords. As we all know, those of us of a certain age can probably remember our home telephone numbers from the 1960s and 70s. I know I can, and that of my friends, but I really struggle now to know my children's phone numbers, my partner's phone number. We just seem to have changed the way our minds work. Furthermore, they'll provide browser extensions or mobile apps, so the access is easy to access the information across all sorts of devices. Obviously, from a security point of view, strong and unique passwords can be generated for each account, reducing the risk of unauthorized access through password guessing or cracking. And you'll see on the screen there the examples of just how long it takes to crack a password, and particularly those that we form ourselves. Protection against phishing. It can help us or help users avoid failing for phishing attacks, because apart from anything else, they autofill login credentials. So only legitimate websites associated with the stored accounts are actually accessed, rather than potentially those that we find in links in emails and on some spoof websites. And of course, it will sit at the center of the recovery strategy for any business, if they can be confident that at least the passwords and accounts can be accessed from in the time of an emergency from remote and normally unused devices. So if we think about the nature of attacks on passwords, there are certainly several common methods that the cyber criminals use. First of all, there's the brute force attack, which I mentioned at the top of my little talk. Hackers try to guess passwords by systematically checking all the possible combinations until the correct one is found. Obviously, if they can do trawls across social media, particularly LinkedIn in the case of businesses, and find some kind of clues as to what a person's interest might be, or their family, their home address and what have you, that obviously gives them a leg up. Interestingly enough, during the period when we were fighting with ISIL, who may have just made a comeback onto the scene, of course, in the last week in Moscow, the powers that be of ISIL decided that they weren't going to use any machine-generated passwords or password managers, because they figured, quite correctly, that they were mostly owned by the US and the UK, and therefore the government agencies would have an in. Consequently, they all devised their own passwords, which enabled us to attack and kill so many of them, because we could work out what they were obviously using because of their lifestyles, where they were, and their interests. And our cryptologists just based their brute force attacks on what they knew that the leaders of ISIL would be thinking and using. Dictionary attacks. So I've mentioned already, there are lists of the commonly used passwords or words from a dictionary. to systematically crack passwords. Those of you who know the site Have I Been Pawned, which is owned by Troy. Thank you. He also publishes lists of the most frequently used passwords, which could be particularly annoying for those of you who find that your account has been cracked. Phishing attacks, so fake websites, emails will trick users into entering their login credentials. Credential stuffing, username and password combinations, usually obtained from data breaches, and I'm sure we're all aware of the hundreds of data breaches that go on almost on a daily basis, and some massive stores that we're probably all connected with at some point, the likes of Morrison's springs to mind, British Airways, various others. Key logging, and this is a great one that the password manager does get around, is where malware or spyware is used to capture the keystrokes entered by the user, including passwords, without their knowledge. Obviously, a password manager loads them straight in without having to revert to the keyboard use. So by using a password manager and understanding the nature of these attacks, individuals and organizations can significantly enhance their online security and protect their sensitive information. Now, yes, there have been instances where password managers have been breached. Some popular password managers have been found to be vulnerable to certain exploits or have experienced data leaks. But it has to be said that at no point has the important data, that of passwords and usernames, made it out onto the dark web. So it's important to remember that password managers can enhance security. They will speed up the ability of the company to access its data. As Graham said at the top of the talk, there's a great financial benefit to businesses to have them. There's a great benefit to all of us in just our general lifestyle. Again, it's vital, as with anything that we use on the internet, that we stay updated with the latest security messages and that we follow best practices to protect our passwords and sensitive information. What it certainly is far safer than the usual habit of having to write down passwords or keep them in our devices that we're actually using the passwords from. And the actual effect of that is to teach our employees, our families, our children about the importance of having varied passwords without having to construct them ourselves. I'm going to end it there. Let you.
Thank you, Neil. Excellent.
Yeah.
You mentioned Troy Hunt. For those of you who are interested, it's Have I Been Pawned? It's without the A, by the way. Have I Been Pawned? And there's another for the more sinister and evil amongst you. There's another excellent site called Dehashed, which is a I don't know how you give me back the screen, but the Dehashed product. Sean, will you take over? Because what I'm going to do is ask you in and then bring Jonathan in. There's a product. Anyway, Dehashed is an excellent site where you can do really quite a lot. And I've only just come across it. I saw it on Reddit the other day. And I unfortunately spent about an hour then in Dehashed. Then I had to physically stop myself. It was really quite interesting. What I'm going to do after Jonathan, after Sean O'Neill here, who's going to give us a quick demo on the product, and I've asked him to sort of concentrate on the greatest hits, is bring Jonathan in to talk about how, both as from the perspective of a customer. Jonathan's the senior analyst with the Irish Cattle Breeding Foundation in Cork Federation, Irish Cattle Breeding Federation, and I'll bring Jonathan to talk both to Neil's points and to the demo that Sean's going to give. Sean, are you in control there? Just give. Okay, Sean's.
I can share my screen out. Can you see that? Is it coming through yet?
Okay. Some of you will already know Sean because Sean will have actually demonstrated Password Manager to you before. So this is Sean O'Neill from our trading partner, Brigantia, and Sean is going to show us the how to start up, what it looks like. And please, because it's a very small audience, as I've repeated before, we're not using webinar at this time. We're using, and we have a very small audience. Last time we had 70 people. But anyone with any questions, Sean will be more than able to handle them. So this is Sean O'Neill from Brigantia demonstrating Keeper security, and we will ask Jonathan in with a few questions once Sean ends up. So thank you. Off you go, Sean.
Thanks, Graham. Is my screen coming through all right for you guys?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So what I wanted to do to start with is just to show you kind of from my side of things how I use Keeper. And then what we'll do is we'll transfer over to what it would look like from you starting Keeper from the very first moment you receive an email to how quickly you can then get on board with Keeper. So this is my vault that I'm sharing with you now through Keeper's web vault. Now there are other options available with Keeper. For example, you've got the mobile phone application for iOS and Android devices. You've got a Keeper desktop application for Mac, Windows and Linux. You've got a Keeper browser plugin, so that's available on Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Safari, Brave, and Opera. And what I'm using here is Keeper's web vault. So I've just signed into keepersecurity.eu/vault, and going back to one of the things that Neil mentioned in terms of being able to recover your data wherever you are. Basically, if you can sign in to Keeper's website, you can sign into your vault as well and get your data back from there. So I'm into my vault at the moment, and the way that typically works for me is I'll load my vault up every single morning when I start work. I'll search for the accounts that I want to log into, and then I'll simply launch it from there. And what you can see with Keeper is it's storing my login, my password, and my two-factor authentication code. So with all of that, I'll click launch, and then Keeper will automatically fill in my username and password, and then it'll take me to the next screen and fill in my two-factor authentication code, and then it'll log me into my account from there. So everything that I need to store within inside of Keeper has been stored within there, and it automatically fills in. So it's great not just for efficiency for yourself, but also if you ever need to share credentials with other users that require two-factor authentication, it's great to also make sure that all that data is included within inside there as well. Now, as part of that, what I've also done is I've logged into kind of a change password page. So again, going back to one of the things that Neil mentioned, trying to think of your own strong passwords is really, really difficult, especially when you've got so many different accounts that you have to access every single day. And especially because each of those accounts that you access must use a strong, unique password. And then trying to remember those or trying to store those or write them down somewhere, it just takes time. It takes a lot of time. So if we had a tool that enabled us to kind of change passwords for us, like Keeper does. For example, I'm at a change password page, same place in Salesforce, I'm at a change password page. And then what Keeper does, basically, it recognizes where you are. And it says, all right, well, you're at a change password page. Would you like help changing a password? I'm going to say, yes, please. And then you've got your current password. All you need to do with this is just tap some buttons. So where it says current password, tap to fill, and then next. Oh, it says new password. Again, just tap to fill. Keeper's automatically generated this really strong password for us. Now, we can, if we wanted to, just roll the dice and it'll generate a new one. And with that, we can take away special characters or increase or decrease character length, depending on what the website's asking for. Some websites are a bit different to others, but most of the time, this will fit the criteria. But then we just tap to fill the new password and tap to confirm the new password and then save that back into our Keeper account. Now, we can also, if you wanted to, based on what we can save into Keeper, we can also save the security question and security answer as well. And then what we also have the option of is ticking to complete the answer for the security question inside there as well. And then we have the option then to just basically use a really strong, unique password. This will take trillions of years to crack. So, whatever Keeper generates for you, it's going to take trillions of years. It's going to be the highest standard in terms of security. So with all that, we've now created a really strong password that's going to take trillions of years in about, 2 seconds? As opposed to me kind of racking my brain and saying, right, well, I can use my business name, I can swap the I with a 1, and I can swap the A with an @ symbol or whatever it may be, and add 1, 2, 3 or whatever at the end, and that kind of thing as well. And then trying to remember it or trying to kind of put it somewhere that you think is going to be relevant and secure, it is tricky as well. And then trying to remember it 3 or 4 months down the line, especially if you create like a password for an account that you're not particularly using that often, then no doubt by the next time you come to access account, you'll need to just kind of reset your password. And again, it just adds more inefficiency around that as well. So this is how I kind of use my Keeper Vault every single day. Now, I'll come back to that in just a second, but for now, I just wanted to show you what it looks like from a perspective of if you were to receive an invite to join Keeper, which Graham typically does from his side, you'll receive an email, it'll come from Keeper team, and it'll just have set up your account now. So if I click on that, if I log out of mine first, that'll help. And now I can click on this, set up your account now. And this should, where are we? Let's get us out on a separate screen.
Sean, just while you're doing that,
Go for it.
this has been a long time bestseller with your company in your range. Keeper is literally the number 1, 2, or 3 best-selling product across your range, and has been since you and I first met 2 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's huge demand for it amongst all sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. So here it's just asking me to create an account. Now you can also, if you wanted to, use single sign-on as well. So if you wanted to kind of use this alongside your Microsoft 365 credentials, you can also do that. It's no problem at all. It will work both ways. It's entirely up to you in terms of what will suit your business best. But I'm just signing in, creating my account here. Got the terms of use, accept those. Two-factor authentication has been enforced by the administrator, so I need to set that up. I'll use the authenticator app here and scan the QR code. I'll add in a new one.
Lord Sean, you're going full hog today. Good man.
There we go, 647904. Confirm. I've got those codes, that's fine. And then transfer account's been enabled by the Keeper administrator as well. And what this essentially means from a business perspective is if somebody leaves your organization and they have a business vault with business credentials inside there, they won't be able to take those business credentials with them. They're in control of the organization. So this transfer account process essentially means as a Keeper administrator, you're in control of what data is in there, what data is out there, and what data you can transfer to somebody else in the event that they leave the organization. It may be that you want to transfer it to an administrator and recover anything they previously tried to delete. It may be that you wanted to transfer it to somebody new who's taking over their role that will still need access to those credentials as well. So click on accept there. And as you can see, this will then give you a bit of an onboarding experience. So everything else has been done for me. You know, the Keeper browser plugin's already been installed for me. That's been done by my MSP. I've done two-factor authentication code. I did that as part of the onboarding session, and I've created the account as well. All that's left for me to do now is to import the password. So click a button, import now, and then you'll see a list of different options. So, you know, whether they are saved in an Excel spreadsheet at the moment, maybe you're using a different password management solution at the moment, you want to transfer data across, that's fine as well. Or maybe you've got passwords saved to a browser. Now, if you've got passwords saved to a browser, it's very, very straightforward as well. So click on import and install, and you'll see that this then downloads an executable file, which we can double click to open. It looks a bit like this here, which is asking for a code. Now, Keeper's giving you a code here, so you just copy that and then paste into the import executable file and import again. And this will then find and bring in any passwords inside the browser. So again, took me, 30 seconds maximum to do this, and it's found all the passwords from a browser, in which case you just add to Keeper. And that's it, you're done. You're set up with Keeper, it's got your passwords in there, you've got the browser plugin in there as well. And if you don't have passwords saved to a browser or to an Excel spreadsheet or anywhere else, and you kind of write them down on sticky notes or whatever, don't worry about that either, because the next time you sign into any particular account, the browser plugin is going to recognize that it doesn't have any credentials saved for that particular website, and it'll offer to save them back in at that point as well. So next time you manually sign into any account, it'll say, all right, we don't have any, we don't have this account saved in Keeper yet. Shall we save it back in now for you? And if you're creating new accounts and you've got Keeper installed as well, then Keeper will generate you a really strong password as you're creating that account and save it straight back into there for you as well. So that's how easy it is to get started with using Keeper. And what we typically do with Graham is we help for any users who want an onboarding session or some training or 15 minutes or whatever, just kind of going through these steps and making sure that, you know, you're confident and comfortable with using that in future. We're more than happy to support from those sides as well. So just reach out. But as you can see from this, we then have some other kind of audit reports, which really help. So again, going back to some of the things that Neil said about around weak passwords and reused passwords and breach passwords potentially as well, this will help us to identify those passwords that perhaps need prioritizing in terms of where we can update those as well. So for that, I'll probably go back to my previous account, which has a bit more information in, which I think is... not that one. Yes. This one. Oh, I logged out of it, didn't I? That's right. I have to log back in again. Here it is. So if I log out of this one now and just log back into my other one, again, just to show you.
And while you're logging in there, Sean, I have one particular customer in Sligo, and she says, I love the colours. She's a very bright woman, but she says the colors are fantastic. I love traffic lights. I love red. It just makes it easy for me to focus on what I need to do and get rid of all my crappy passwords and move on to security. Yeah. And she said she had no idea how effective a simple traffic light like a color could be. And hopefully she's going to be far more secure than she once was. She's about 40 people in the organization.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's things like, it's little things like that that just make sense as well, because as a user, again, one of the things that Neil touched on is around the adoption of these types of tools, because it's only when you get that adoption that you see an increase in security. And when you're looking at Keeper as a password management solution, and when you see how easy it is to kind of get on board with Keeper, the adoption rate's really high because it's really intuitive. It just makes sense, and it kind of guides you through the whole process of just getting things in there and starting to use it. And as soon as you've got the browser plugin installed, and again, you know, that can be done as part of a kind of push out from your MSP. That can just make life so much easier. So no longer are you now saving passwords to a browser, which is insecure. You're now saving passwords into Keeper in the similar kind of method. The browser plugin will pop up, it will autofill, it will offer to save new passwords and all the rest of it as well that you're used to from using the browser as you were before. So that kind of shifting mentality is not too much different. And if you do like colors, by the way, we can also change the theme and coloring of Keeper as well. So mine's in black. I don't particularly like colors that much, but you know, if you do like brighter colors, then you can also change the theming around Keeper as well.
So can I just, Dermot has a question, and I want to bring Jonathan in as well, just to interact with you a bit here. For sites using two-factor codes, are they constantly updated in Keeper as displayed in the Google Authenticator app? That's from Dermot.
Yes, they are.
Oh, all right. Oh, good man, Jonathan. Thank you.
When you're opening, the way Sean was doing it there, if say that was another site, he could have used a little tool within Keeper to scan the QR code, and that's what imports them into Keeper, as you can see roughly there.
Yep. Right. So if I just load up a record here,
and we come back to you in a second, Jonathan, too, as well. Thank you.
Edit and add two-factor authentication code. Through Keeper's desktop application, as Jonathan mentioned, you can scan a QR code. So similar to what I did with my mobile phone when I was setting up my other Keeper account. Instead, you could just use the QR scanner within Keeper to do that within there, or you can upload a QR code, or alternatively, you've got a manual entry set up. So, you know, title, account.
That answers that. Thanks very much.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, Dermot. Jonathan, just while Sean just takes a breather there, will you talk very briefly, and can I introduce everybody? This is a lovely man here, Jonathan Flack from Cork. He's the senior analyst for the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation, ICBF. Would you just talk a little bit about your experience rolling this out and getting user adoption, and what your perception is of how easy and effective this has been for you?
I suppose I'm very lucky I had Sean starting me up on this, whatever it was, 15, 16 months ago. And look, I suppose we started out small. We pushed it out to 1 or 2 teams of about 15, 20 staff. Mainly the big guys in development, because they have a lot of apps they're using and different tools they're using, all using passwords, QR codes, the works. Started out with those, did one team, did a second team, and just gradually rolled it out slowly from there. Not heavy pushing. We had a bit more pushback from some of the other teams, sort of the finance and the admin teams didn't really see the point of it. It's proved its usefulness for them when they've had staff out, that they've been able to share the passwords between each other for payroll systems. So they didn't have to have it written down in the back of their notebooks, which was a big favorite of theirs for a long time. Yeah, to be fair, the staff are using it, they like it, easy. We've been able to build folders for staff as well that we can share across teams, so that, you know, the basic set of passwords that most of the team are going to need are there pre-populated when the user logs in for the first time, which is great. We've a number of students come in regularly for 6-month rotations. So when they arrive in, they set up the keeper account, and the sort of 6 passwords they need to get into the basic information to get going are already there, populated, and off they go and add more then as their placement goes on. I suppose, look, from our point of view, we have a security culture. It definitely helps with that, because as I said, with the students off the bat, or any new user off the bat, they're in, this is your password manager. There's no argument. This is what you use. So it's forcing them to think about it off the bat. You know, we also have, I suppose, anyway, I won't divert. So yeah, look, I suppose from in the IT realm, from our own perspective, from disaster recovery, our passwords aren't written down on bits of paper somewhere in the building that's currently burning away in the background. They're stored off-site. They're accessible, whether it's through the app on our laptop, whether it's through the app on our phone. We can get access to the passwords. We know we can get access to everything, you know, should the building burn down or whatever disaster befalls us. So which is great. The other thing we're seeing a lot more of at the moment is certification. So things like ISO, NIST, NIS2 coming down the tracks in Europe, GDPR. I suppose, like you saw there when he was logging in, Sean had the data set to EU location. You can change that US, whatever, but obviously Europe we set to EU. So it helps you certify yourself against various other things. Like ISO 27001 requires the use of a password manager.
That's great. And Jonathan, I think what you're also told is your timing was excellent, because compliance and additional cyber walls are going up everywhere, and every product, every service, especially with banking, finance, revenue, those sort of people. I mean, I know now that you have to phone call people to check their IBANs before transferring, because the bank, you know, won't validate your payment or send it, and B, refuse to take any responsibility for the transmission of the payment, even if it's an IBAN in their own bank. So everywhere we step now. So your timing's been quite good to escalate your security capacity, bringing this in. So it's going to be, I suspect, very helpful. Just quickly though, Jonathan, I know you're happy with it, but just tell us a little bit about your happiness.
That's a leading question. Yeah, look, we are happy with it. I suppose you know, you'll always have 1 or 2 users are going to kick back, because they like doing things the way they've always done it, whether that's writing it down in the back of their notebook, or it's the one password with the 4 variations that they've always used. At least here you can show them, look, it doesn't matter, you log in once in the morning and it sits there, whether you launch it directly or you just go to the website and it says, hey, do you want to click the button and I'll fill out the rest of it. Brilliant, it's sorted. You know, it's far easier for them, I think, than actually having that set of 4 passwords that they cycle through for various different things.
Okay, excellent, Jonathan. Thank you. Sean, if you've do you have 30 seconds of greatest hits to go through before we conclude? Because I said we would be done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 things actually that's probably worth mentioning. One of the things
Lovely.
that Jonathan touched on is quite important for many organizations, I think, and that's in terms of sharing passwords. So, you know, there are a few different ways in terms of how you can share passwords within Keeper very securely. So where organizations do have a requirement of sharing passwords, Keeper can definitely help with that. So, you know, I'll just show you a couple of examples through here. First of all, I'll show you how Keeper helps with sharing a unique record. So this G2 record here, for example, every record within Keeper has this share button. So you can click on the share button and just basically type in the email address of who you want to share it with. And providing the other user has access to Keeper and they can decrypt the data from their vault as well, then you can share with anybody with a Keeper account. And again, you must have the permissions to be able to do that as well, because part of the admin console is we can also restrict permissions. So if we don't want people sharing inside the organization, we can also restrict those permissions as well. And we also have a one-time share, which allows you to securely share credentials or file attachments to users outside your organization as well, perhaps to those who don't have a Keeper vault. So maybe a contractor or client or supplier. And with this, you can create a unique link and then copy the link, email that to whoever it is you're looking at emailing it to and sharing it with, and then they will then have access to that particular credential via a secure browser page that looks a little bit like this. And as you can see, that will automatically expire after the set period of time. So rather than sharing those passwords in unsecure methods such as Teams or text or email or whatever else it may be, instead you can create these one-time shares. These are much more secure. They can only ever be opened on one device, so they can't then be shared on somebody else. And you get a full audit report as to when those are being created, when they're being shared, when they're being accessed as well. So the good thing about Keeper is that whenever anything does happen, it's fully audited in the back end as well. So those are two ways of how we can share an individual record. And then, as Jonathan mentioned, one of the kind of use cases for him and his organization was around team sharing. So for this, we create like team shared folders. So I'm going to use a marketing team as an example because they often need to kind of share social media accounts, and some of those social media accounts have 2FA associated with them. So with this, we can create the marketing team shared folder. So what I'll do is I'll add whatever records it is that they need access to, for some reason B&Q and Zoom. So, just put as many as those as you need to in there. And with the users this time, rather than typing each individual user from the marketing team, as Jonathan mentioned, you can just type in the team. So here we've got a marketing team set up, and anybody new that joins the marketing team inside our organization get added to the marketing team inside the admin console, and they'll then automatically have access to this shared folder and all the records that they need access to. And as you can see with this team, it consists of 3 users currently, and there are some further restrictions in place for that particular team. So nobody from marketing can edit those records, or they can't reshare those records. And also the privacy screen has been enabled by admin as well, which means nobody from the marketing team can actually see the passwords that you're sharing with them. So it's a really secure way of being able to share credentials with inside your organization without the worry of, if somebody leaves the organization, having to then reset the passwords that you'd previously shared before. So I think, yeah, as Jonathan mentioned, sharing is something that we kind of typically come up against a lot for organizations, and those are just a few ways that we can really help with that method.
Thank you, Sean. Jonathan, because you've kindly agreed to join us today, and I know you're busy, a final thought from you about the effectiveness or what you like about this?
Ease of setup was great for us. As I said, we've been able to talk the more difficult users around to using it, which is great. Sometimes you'll never do it. They're just stuck in the muds. But generally speaking, it works. It's worked well for us. It is working well for us, I should say. And it's ticking boxes on the certification side for compliance.
Thank you very much. Listen, everybody, we're not going to, no propaganda today, no moving in the right direction or anything, just going to close out, say thank you very much, especially to Neil Sinclair from London, who spoke excellently this morning about the global threat and why you might consider it, to Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Flack there. Obviously, Keeper is the product. I've put in the chat where you might reach out, or if you want the email address and my phone number. But our VoIP provider went out of business, so I've just learned. So the landlines on the website don't work. Thank you very much. It is a great product to Denise. It is a really great product. It's ideally suited, to be honest, for people running slightly larger organizations, but works perfectly well for small companies as well. So with that, from our Keeper Security presentation this morning, it's Graham from Be Secure Online, thanking everybody, one and all co-presenters and watchers. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to just try and close out and say good morning.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Denise, for joining as well. Dennis, everybody.
Thanks,
Dermot,
Graham.
thank you.
Yeah, great to see you again. Very informative.
Cheers, Jenny. See you in the morning,
Yeah.
Dermot. Thank you. God bless.